to you. It's fantastic tutor. And into this tutorial, we will be having a very first class on course EDU114. With this being said, let's get straight into it. Okay. Okay. So we have EDU114, and to start with, we'll be commencing EDU114. I might need to apologize ahead. All right, I need to apologize because our class today might not be for that long, because the network has not been so okay, and this class is actually supposed to be for 3 p.m. and just look at the time we're having this class, so it's not going to be as long as usually. It's not going to be taking that long. So now let's go straight into it. With the little time we have, let's just use it. Let's maximize the little time we have. Okay, so now we're taking our bearing from what is referred to as history. So I need you to please pay attention to the sound of my voice. The Immaculate, this having a God. Okay, so we're going to be taking our bearing from what it means by history. Now, when we say history, what are we talking about? Okay, when we say history, what comes in mind? Now, history is more than just storytelling. History is more than storytelling. It's not mere storytelling. Now, it is also not mere fabrications. Not it is not storytelling. All right, fabrications, something that is made up. All right, something that is made up that is not true. So history is not mere storytelling, nor mere fabrications. History is referred to. All right, history is said to be an account. An account. Please, if you cannot hear me, do well to let me know on the comment section. Okay, history is referred to as an account of what actually happened in the past. An account of what happened when in the past. All right, so you see why it is called, or you see why we say that it is not a fabrication and is not storytelling. It actually happened, all right, in the past, and that's why we call it history. Now, it is what happened in the past which has a link. Now, this did not just happen. Likewise, it has a link to what is happening, all right, at present, and what, all right, it has a link with what is happening, all right, at present, and what can help in preparing or projecting the future. Okay, so it's not just what happened in the past, all right, a link with the present, all right, and a projection for the future. You see what it is? It is a link, all right, with the past, all right, a link from the past influencing the present, and we can use this as a projection for the future. Now you see why it is not mere fabrication nor storytelling. Please, as you join the stream, do well to mark the attendance, jot down as the class commences, and make sure you submit your notes. It's a proof. It helps us to, all right, it helps us to project, all right, measure your progress as the classes commences. Okay, so let's continue. Now, what you need to understand here is that history is not just mere storytelling or mere fabrications. Okay, now let's take a step further. Now, it says here that, okay, it says here that when we talk about history, it has a lot to do with, all right, it has a lot to do with yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Okay? It has a lot to do with yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Okay? Please take note of that. Now let's take a step further. Just a moment. I'm trying to fix my notes very quickly. Okay. Now, as we have it here, it says here that historical records, okay, historical records or accounts are presented in what we refer to as sequential, coherent, consistent, and systematic order. Why is this so? So that it will be easy. We can easily integrate, all right? We can easily comprehend, we can easily understand where we are coming from, where we are, and where we are going to as a nation. All right? The past has a lot to do with the present and even the future. Speaking of which, what we refer to as history. Okay? So now let's take a step further. Okay, so now we have it here. It says that history, okay, just a moment, I'm trying to adjust my material. Okay, now according to what we have here, history tries to dig into important areas of interest. Okay, it digs into what we refer to as important area of interest. Now look how it's been placed. Okay, now historian. Now we understand what it means by history. Okay, now we understand what it means by history. One thing we need to understand is that, all right, we need to understand the place of an historian. All right, now there's something we refer to as logical presentation. All right, and logical presentation here happens to be an important part. It happens to be a very important part of history. And that's why it is necessary. It is very, very important that when we come to history, or when we talk about history, all right, the presentation has to be, all right, the presentation has to be, all right, orderly. It has to be sequential. It has to be coherent. All right. It has to be done appropriately. All right. So there is need for logical presentation, which happens to be the most important ingredient of history. All right. So bias and prejudice are not allowed when it comes to history. Bias and prejudice, all right, or necessary dislike, all right, is not allowed when it comes to history. Now, the historian, now that we know what history is, we have a glimpse of what it's all about. Now, let's talk about who the historian, all right, who the historian is. Now, the historian, talking about the historian, who is the historian? The historian tries to what is that individual who tries to present issue, incidents, or events concerning people and places in their unbiased form. All right. Now, the historian tries to dig into important area of interest. Now, this historian goes beyond they said and seek to find out how it happens. Seeks to find out how it happens. All right. He doesn't just base his information or claims on what he heard. All right. They dig deep, they dig deeper to find out how what was said happened. Okay. So we have that as that. Now let's take a step further. Now it says here, an historian is not usually in an hurry at all. Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for that. Now, an historian is not usually in a hurry at all. They take their time. It takes time to evaluate, all right, the necessary information received. It takes time to evaluate the necessary information he has received. Okay, so we have that as that. Now, let's take a step further. So now that we understand who an historian is and what history is, so what are the sources of history? Now, there are so many sources of gathering information of the major characters, places, or incidents of the past. This study, all right, will limit its source to just two major areas, namely primary and secondary sources of history. Now, speaking of the primary sources of history, this refers to various information about real names of people, places, events that are gathered by the historian from somebody or people who was or were referred to eyewitness, all right, to the incidents. So we have primary source, all right. First, we have names, places, events, all right, given, all right, or information given by who we refer to as eyewitness. So it wasn't the historian that figured this out himself. This is more like gathering of information and collecting of intels from individuals who happens to have the area of concentration or experience or have informations who have happened to be eyewitnesses, all right, to a particular incidents in the past. Now, the primary source could be oral or written, all right, could be oral or written. Okay, so we have that as that. It could be through video, internet, or scientific procedures like the archaeological findings. So let's talk about the secondary. Okay, we have the secondary For the secondary, when a historian consults books written by somebody or persons who was, all right, when the historian now consults book, all right, written by somebody or persons who was or were not eyewitness or eyewitnesses to the incident, it is referring to the secondary sources of information. All right, books. Now, let's put it this way. This person here is Mr. A. He has gathered information from eyewitnesses and everything. Then he came, all right, after he had gathered everything, he went ahead and book about what he has gathered. Now he's writing a book based on the information he has gotten from the primary sources. All right, so that is referred to as the secondary sources of information. So if Mr. C comes, picks a book, gets information about a particular history, then he's getting it from the secondary source, who happens to be the person that got information from the primary source. All right, and that's how it works basically. Okay, so we have not high witnesses. So we have that as that. So okay, let's call it wrap here for today. Like I apologized earlier, our class today might not be taking that long because we have actually spent a lot of time trying to fix this back end just to ensure we have this class. So just pardon us for today. Let's just stop the class here. It doesn't affect much other classes we have immediately after this. Do well to keep your notes updates and submit to the appropriate quarters. Bye for now.